Welcome to Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. This week, we talk fine dining and rare whiskeys. In the second half of our show, we'll speak with Bill Thomas, owner of the Jack Rose Dining Saloon in Washington, D.C., about his 1,800-bottle collection of scotches, bourbons, and ryes. But first, we walk down to the Mandarin Hotel on Boylston Street to meet with renowned international chef Daniel Boulud, who comes from the three-star restaurant in New York that bears his name, to open his first restaurant here in Boston, Bar Boulud. Chef Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill.
Chef, your prowess as one of the great chefs in the world is widely recognized, but I'm more interested in hearing about your story as an entrepreneur and a businessman. You grew up in a farm on France. You were exposed to all the key cultural and food influences that made you a great chef, but what helped you develop your business instinct?
I don't know. I don't think when I started cooking, then I will be in Boston today, opening a new restaurant. As a restaurateur. But I definitely had the passion for this business. I had the passion and interest for everything who encompassed the business. From the front of the house to the back of the house, to the customer, to the winemakers, to the suppliers.
Are there any restaurateurs in your family, or are you the first?
No, we had a cafe in the village where I grew up, and it was a small cafe, and in the 60s we closed that cafe. But I always kept some pictures, old pictures, and felt like, I don't know. I didn't even know what a restaurant of the caliber I have today was when I was a kid, because growing up on the farm, you're not going out to restaurants too often because the food on the table is so good. We grew up everything. We cooked everything we made. We preserved things, and so I think really I knew I loved cooking for sure when I was very young. And my parents put me in a cooking school.
How old were you then?
14, and because I wanted to quit school to cook.
Wow.
And they put me in a cooking school, and I hated the food there. I hated the teacher. My grandmother and mother were much better than them. So I told them, I said, I need to get out of there. I'm miserable. And we find to a very good friend, she helped me get into the finest restaurant in Lyon. And that was a 2-star restaurant. And that really gave me the startup. And from there, I kept dreaming.
As an apprentice, you were there.
Yes.
I understand you won an apprentice competition when you were 17.
Yeah, because I guess I didn't mind to compete. I was ambitious, but I also was observing carefully who I was working for. And for me, it was one thing I was learning was cooking, but the other part was also observing my boss and observing his passion, observing his ambition, observing his, the way he was representing his restaurant, the way he was representing himself within the community and how he was involved with the community. And I always did that in every chef I worked.
And he was a mentor to you in those days?
And I think every mentor brings you something. Every mentor, some are more poetic and less entrepreneurial, but very creative, and some of them are much more classic and maybe more grounded
in business issues.
And I think everyone bring you this very interesting part of business. Who I didn't know numbers, I didn't know anything, but I understood the mechanism of what make a good chef, a good business, a good restaurant. And I always was interested by that. So,
and maybe your mentors were like the seasonings in a dish, a little bit of this and a little bit of that to make your own creation.
Exactly. They give you a little bit of freedom. And I do give freedom to my chef today. I definitely want my restaurant to have my representation. It has to have the DNA of Daniel Boulud, but it has to also have the real character of where it is. For example, Bar Boulud here in Boston, it's about Boston. It's about Bar Boulud, and it's about a French bistro, but who was born in America first and foremost, that bistro. It was not something brought from France to America. And I always work a lot with American young chefs. I've trained hundreds and hundreds of American young chefs, and I strive in opportunity to create and to be spontaneous with American chef.
Well, that leads me to my next question. You were brought from France to America. What brought you here? Why did you decide to build your business and career here?
Well, when I started at 14, and a chef there told me, I've never really traveled with my profession, but I can tell you one thing, then if you wish, you can travel the world with being a cook, with being a chef.
If that's part of your goal.
Anywhere you'll go, you kind of find a way to be able to cook, find a way to be able to show your talent. And so I always remember that. I've learned cooking in the 70s in France when there was the revolution of nouvelle cuisine. And all those famous chefs who made the landmark of nouvelle cuisine, and also we were the mentor of myself, but a whole generation of chefs in America. I mean, from Jasper White to Barbara Lynch to those great chefs were really mentor and inspiration.
But that era.
And they were world traveler. They were already world traveler. But you go back to the time of Escoffier, where he had restaurant, and with Charles Ritz, they had restaurant in London and restaurant in Geneva and south of France, and even Montreal. Charles Ritz had a restaurant in Montreal with Escoffier. And so all that was in me. I always felt, well, I'll keep traveling. And also the 70s, we met a lot of chefs from all over the world. Japanese chef was coming to learn in France. American chef.
Global mix.
They were already a global mix in the French kitchens. And so this was opening your mind to dream about traveling.
So you first started in Washington, I think, as a private chef.
Exactly.
Did you have any challenges, immigration challenges, any regulatory challenges coming here?
That's why I came to America, because many of the chefs came because somebody say, oh, I can offer you a job in America. Do you want to come? And they came without visa, and then they figured out how to do the papers. For me, this opportunity was, I had a visa, diplomatic visa, employee, diplomat, and then I had a car, I had an apartment, and a lousy salary. But it was
a start.
But everything else was perfect. And I was 25 years old, and I felt, what can I risk? I have no string attached, no girlfriend,
nothing to lose.
Nothing. I'm free as the wind.
And you spent a time in Washington, but then you decided to head for New York. There's probably no more challenging restaurant market you could find than New York.
I love my time in Washington, and I think it gave me the opportunity to visit America and to really fall in love with the country. And then I switched my visa to a O1 visa, and that was giving me a chance to stay for 3 years at least, renewable for another 3 years. So I felt that will give me
enough time,
a solid time to decide what I'm going to do with my life. And I always dreamed to go back to France, but I wanted to stop by New York on the way to France, and I never left my zip code in New York. I am still in the same zip code, 10021, since I arrived in 1982.
Talk about the early years in New York.
So I arrived in New York in late 82, and I had an opportunity to work in a hotel, the Westbury Hotel and the Polo Lounge, and that same company, Trustas Forte, was building also a Plaza Athénée Hotel, the famous Palace of Paris, which they managed there. They wanted to do a branch in New York, and they promised me the job of executive chef there if I were taking executive sous at the Polo Lounge. And I felt like great opportunity to enter New York from the smaller door rather than the big door. And so I worked at the Westbury Hotel and Plaza Athénée, and after 3 years in hotels, I wanted something more personal, something more New York, something who was part of the real history of restaurant of New York, and I had the opportunity to be the chef at Le Cirque. And Le Cirque was famous for being so famous as a restaurant with, important people, the finest of the socialite, the businessman, the entertainment, but also a real New York restaurant. And the owner was Italian, Sergio Maccioni, Mr. Maccioni, a master. But it was also the era where the restaurant was run by the front of the house.
What does that mean?
The owner was a maître d' or a manager, and he was
very much in charge.
Owner of the restaurant, in charge of the front of the house, but not always in control of the kitchen as much.
Okay.
And my generation is about the chef running the restaurant and the chef being the brand rather than the front of the house, or sometime in partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a great opportunity for me to show how great of a chef I was, because after all, the cooking depended on me.
Mm-hmm.
And
It was your show now.
Yes, but I had to respect tradition. I had to respect the history of the restaurant, and I had to respect the customer, the loyalty of their customer.
Mm-hmm.
But I also brought a lot of new things, a lot of new change. Over the 6 years, I kept evolving with the restaurant and making that restaurant one of the finest in the world. It was really special time.
So, Chef, you made your reputation at Le Cirque, but then you struck out on your own, your first business with your first investor group. Tell us about that.
Well, my daughter was born in 1989, and actually, because I didn't go back to France, she had the privilege to go to Tufts University here in Boston.
Right here in Boston.
For 4 years. And so when she was born, the late 80s in New York was scary a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of going back to France and going to Lyon and start my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried that 2 summers on the road, and then I made the decision, no, it has to be New York. And so now I have to find money, because I come from a very humble and simple family, but we didn't have, my parents could not help me.
Right. They couldn't underwrite a restaurant.
Because I worked so hard all my life to try to make a name for myself. I never did it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely didn't have the resources to be able to start my own business. And so I had to find somebody who will trust me to. And so I was trying to basically build a raising of 2.5 to 3 million.
Mm-hmm.
I was ambitious. I didn't want to open in a garage and try to makeshift a restaurant.
Do it right.
I wanted a restaurant who was more casual than where I come from, the Le Cirque, but certainly ambitious, or even more ambitious than what I was doing at Le Cirque. And all with the cooking and the service and the setting. And
in charge from the back of the house.
And in
The
charge
chef
of
would be in
everything,
charge,
front and back.
Yeah.
And so, as I was having fundraising opportunity and frustration, I had about half of my investor, which was about $1.5 million. But
Signed
I
up.
needed to raise another $1 million. And I met one of the gentlemen who I never really cooked for him. He didn't know me too well, but his niece, by marriage to his nephew, Lily Linton, was Harvard Business School student and a very good friend of mine, and say, my David's uncle will like to invest with you as well. And she was helping me building up a business plan and all that. And she said, I talked to his uncle and he wants to invest with you. And so I met with Joel Smilo, and Joel Smilo, who was the CEO of one of the largest company in America, Playtex and other company, had made a great fortune of himself during the 40 years at the helm of that company, and liked me and say,
Took a chance.
After the interview, say, I'd rather be the one than one of them. And so I'll be the full investor if you like.
He
and
took
we can
out
sign the deal right now.
No kidding. He took out the whole syndicate and
Yes,
became the sole investor.
Absolutely. He
Wow.
felt we will do better in business together. It's much easier to see 2 across the table than 20. And
Yep. But how did you feel about that? Did you feel that might give him too much control?
no, I was not scared. I trust him. I really trust him. And I didn't know him, and he didn't know me.
You
But
just had
he
the
trusted
instinct.
his niece and nephew, and I trusted my friends also, then that will be a good thing. And so 22 years ago, we started our first restaurant, Daniel.
Well, before we get on to Bar Boulud, because that's really what I want to talk about here in Boston, tell the story about Daniel for people who don't know.
Well, Daniel is everything I work for, everything I dream for, and everything I wanted to be. And Daniel is one of the finest restaurants in New York, one of the finest restaurants in the country.
Well, it's 3 Michelin stars in
Yes.
Relais Chateau. How often does that happen?
And tradition et qualité. And I think Daniel is what I strive for, the way Barbara strive for here in Boston with Menton, the way, or Park 9, or the way every finest chef in America strive for the best in this country. And Daniel is 21 years old now. And
Is it really?
It's on 65th and Park, and many Bostonians know Daniel very well. I have a lot of loyal customers from Boston coming to New York and enjoying Daniel. And,
Well, you have since then opened restaurants in London, Singapore, Montreal, Las Vegas, Miami. I have to ask, why Boston?
Well, I think I've been blessed, but this opportunity to grow came from maybe the confidence of my partner to help me in business. The structure of my partner in the business, my CFO, COO, director of operation, I have a structure of management who enable us to take opportunity to grow, but very carefully, but very, very professionally.
What is your advice for building a team like that?
You think you could save money without them, but you will not do so well without them. And I think for me, it has been investing in people first and foremost, never looking at the bottom line and how much I could take for myself. It's all about how much can I put in with other.
And bring them along and let them grow. And
exactly. And so I've been very fortunate, and we have people who are way smarter than me, way more up. I mean, that's what I say when I show the team of Dinex Group. I always said, and I don't want their job, and I don't know how to do their job. But the management company I have, they all have competence professionally. And the fact that my partner, Joel Smilo and Lily Linton, my two partners are very accomplished professionals and entrepreneurs. They really guide me also in the people we surround ourselves with. And
they led you here to Boston, which is not the most friendly city for great chefs. Both Sensing did not do well, and Market did not do well.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to realize sometime which partner do you go with. I've made my own mistake myself. I had last year, we closed a restaurant in China called Maison Boulud because we realized that the partner we had were not the right partner for us. And so we fulfilled our contract. We did our job very well. We protected our brand. We took care of their business. But at the end, we didn't want to go any further with them. Same thing in Vancouver. Once we had to close a restaurant because we were sort of forced by friendship to support someone in an enterprise. And at the end, we had nothing to do there. Neither it was the wrong location, wrong place,
just didn't work.
Wrong partners, and so it didn't work. And I think for some of the restaurants here, if they didn't work, it's certainly because the chemistry of relationship management and goal didn't work. And here in Boston, I will say that I have an incredible privilege to be with Mandarin because
you got a great location, that's for sure.
They have an amazing location. They have an amazing reputation as an hotel, as one of the finest chain hotel in the world. And also, I have already 5 years of relationship with them in London, with the Mandarin Group, with the Bar Boulud in London. I trust them. I really trust them. They're committed to excellence. They're committed to their customer. They're committed to their community. And for me, it's very important. And so I cannot read the cards, and I cannot tell in 10 years from now. But I hope to be still in Boston and having a lot of fun and bringing something good to Boston.
Well, for Bostonians who haven't been to your restaurant, what should they expect here at Bar Boulud?
Well, Bar Boulud is, again, every one of my restaurants is very much chef-driven. Chef-driven because that's the nature of who I am. And Bar Boulud Boston, it's a bistro, first and foremost, but a bistro with a component of a wine bar. And Bar Boulud New York, when we created Bar Boulud, it was about also the homage to charcuterie. I'm from Lyon, and charcuterie is an important point, but also to Burgundy and Rhone. And here in Boston, we're going to be our own Bar Boulud here. We're not going to be a copy. It's not a carbon copy of New York or London. It's going to be its own, but it's going to have the DNA of Bar Boulud New York. Definitely in that particular aspect of the charcuterie program, the wine list. It's a wine-driven restaurant where a lot of elements are meant to go very well in pairing with wine and food. And it's going to be affordable. It's going to be approachable. It's going to be fun, but very serious when it comes to executing the service, the food.
And you're working with chef de cuisine Aaron Chambers?
Aaron Chambers, who has been with me in New York for the past 7 years.
Okay.
He was executive sous chef at Bar Boulud. He was also working at Daniel, and he worked as well in Boulud Sud, which is the latest restaurant I opened in New York, and it's a Mediterranean-driven restaurant next to Bar Boulud. And it's really, really wonderful. And Aaron has great talent, and his wife is from Boston, and he wanted to move to closer to the family of his wife. He's from England. Aaron is English.
Okay, and he knows your style and your method of doing business, and so the chemistry is already there.
And I trust him as a chef, and it's really about chemistry between talents and between the team. And he has been in Boston almost for 9 months now, so he knows the city well. He knows the supplier. He has found the suppliers. He has built up a team. So I'm very happy, and I think it's going to be an exciting restaurant, because Boston always have exciting restaurant. I am very close friend. I was at Ken Oranger Restaurant Toro last night. We had a fantastic time.
That's in our neighborhood.
I love it.
I love that place.
Oh, yeah. And I know Ken for a long, long time. Michael Schlaw, Barbara, of course, and many, many friends. I can't list them all, but who have been great supporters, great friends. I used to come to Boston when our dear Julia was here and cooking in her kitchen.
Knew her, huh?
Of course.
Oh, boy.
And she took me. I remember one night we cooked all day. For 2 days on the road, we cooked together in the house. And then she took me to Hammersley Cafe.
Wow, what great memories.
Yes.
So, Chef, can you recommend anything special on your menu here?
Well, as I said, the charcuterie program will be very interesting, but there's also the seafood. We're in Boston. We have to celebrate seafood. And so we're going to have wonderful dishes, the lobster, the oysters, the clams, seasonal, coastal, but also some burgers.
Burgers?
I am known to have created the gourmet burger when I created the DB burger. But here I want to make a little bit more casual burger. I love America, and I love America for its burger when the burgers are really taken seriously by chef. Also, a lot of seasonality dishes, market-driven dishes,
changing menu with the year. Very good.
Dishes. It's really a combination of tradition, innovation, and of course we will be open breakfast, lunch, dinner, 7 days a week, including
we need
brunch.
Breakfast restaurants as part of town. That's
and this is going to be, I think, a great breakfast destination also, as much for power breakfast business, but also for leisure breakfast.
Covering a lot of ground.
It's basically a very casual approach to fine dining, where the price, the service, the food, the wine, it's all affordable, approachable, and we want that to be delicious and unforgettable.
Chef, it's been a delight, but I do have to ask you one question that's been on my mind for a long time. Who do I have to know to get a reservation at Daniel?
Well, like every restaurant.
It's so hard to get a reservation
No, but
there.
like every restaurant, you have to make an effort to patronize it. And, it's amazing the relationship and the reward you get from going back to a restaurant they recognize you. And you go a third time and they start to really know you. I've been blessed by amazing customer in New York, and I'm sure we will have them in Boston, who have been so faithful to me. But what I love is that it's not all about me. It's sometimes because they love the bartender. Sometimes they love the sommelier. Sometimes they love the waiters. They love that brings them back. The person who brings the bread. They have an attachment with someone. They have an attachment with something in our place who make them feel an extension of their home.
Well, Chef, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you very much, Bill, and I look forward to see you again at Bar Boulud.
We'll be there. That was Chef Daniel Boulud speaking with us from his recently opened Bar Boulud at Boston's Mandarin Hotel, here on Real Clear Radio Hour, brought to you by the Competitive Enterprise Institute. I'm your host, Bill Frezza. To send us comments and feedback on this or any of our past shows, visit realclearradio.org and click on the email Bill link. Real Clear Radio Hour is a partnership with Real Clear Politics, one of America's top political websites. I check Real Clear every day for the latest news articles, election polls, and political commentary. Ahead, Bill Thomas from the Jack Rose Dining Saloon in Washington, D.C., gives us a peek at his 1,800 bottles of scotches, bourbons, and rye. Stay tuned.